welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Buitendach, the founder of the Sleep Company, and I have a history in psychology and occupational therapy, and my company does gentle sleep consulting. Today's topic is I'm having a chat with Nicole Mayer, and we're going to discuss all things body related. We're going to stem from your body prior to having kids, your experience throughout your pregnancy, and then post-pregnancy. What takeaways did we learn? How has our perception of our bodies changed? This discussion is very body positivity driven, and I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to our interview. This is Nicole Mayer. So for everyone listening, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and I think most importantly, what is it that got you so passionate about body positivity?
So I'm going to try and be as concise as I can be. I'm from South Africa. I have two children, both little girls. They are 6 and 4 years old. I became very passionate about body positivity because I came from a family of girls. We were 3 sisters, and I was always the one who looked different, but was asked to by members of the family, asked to look the same. And from a very young age, I had just wanted to be accepted for what I was, as different as that looked from everyone else. And
this is actually, I think, like a common problem in families, is that because we're from the same family, you're expecting there to be like a consistency throughout the family. And this happens with personality as well, where when one child's personality, there's a really creative child in the family dynamic, that accounts for a lot of your difference makes the family dynamic uncomfortable. And that's probably what happened with you and looking different from your siblings.
I think that pretty much hit the nail on the head, yes.
Yeah.
And then I went on in a very strange way to try and find a niche that I fit in, because I did art in school. I ended up studying fashion design, where I obviously fit even less into this industry. And that kind of set a thought pattern in me of why is it okay for this industry to be feeding this message to, mass women as well? And that kind of, I think, also ignited that spark and made it a bit of a flame.
Yeah. Today, our conversation, really, we want to discuss the whole, your body through the pregnancy and through childbirth and, after childbirth, I think, is super important. But from your perspective, and we'll actually both share our personal journeys regarding this, was how did you find your body? What was your perception of your body actually prior to children? I think that's the first thing I want to know.
So, there were things I admired, and there were things that I wished could be different. But I would say it was mostly a positive love relationship. There was definitely more I liked than, what I didn't like. It was certainly a lot easier to keep in some kind of, I want to say controlled shape. But yeah, I would say that it's a much kinder relationship now, but I would say it was more positive than negative at the time.
And you see, I was almost the opposite of that. I really struggled, and I've always been slender, but I succumbed big time to that idea of thinness and control over the way that your body looks. And prior to my children, it was very much almost like a vanity in me, like an insane vanity of how I looked and how people perceived me and the perception that I brought across. And I was very controlled in my eating, very controlled in my exercising. I over-exercised a lot. I was pretty vain. And how did that change for you? How was your experience of pregnancy?
So there's two. I'm going to dip a little bit into the first and the second pregnancy, because there is a little bit of a difference in both. So just before I fell pregnant with my eldest, I was diagnosed as a celiac. And there was a bit of kind of healing in terms of health just before I'd become pregnant with her. And then I became pregnant, and it was this wonderful experience. It was very special. I enjoyed how, things kind of changed and that kind of thing. Interestingly enough, having had two girls, how you carry a baby is a myth. My first baby was low and my second baby was high. Also, very interestingly, I look different because I can't remember what it's called now, but with my first, the placenta I had placenta previa. So her placenta wasn't up at the front or at the back.
Okay.
So I felt movement and everything very early, but she was positioned in a way that her spine and mine were together.
Okay.
No, sorry. That was the second one. She was sort of positioned the way babies normally are, and a restricted movement and that kind of thing, which took, a bit of getting used to, but it was a very positive thing. With my second, I actually hardly showed because her placenta was at the front.
That anterior placenta.
Yes, which meant I didn't feel as much of her movement as I did with the first. My bump was actually pretty small. And then because her spine and mine were actually facing together, I actually had this whole range of mobility the second time that I didn't have the first, which was probably lucky because I had a toddler now. I mean, my eldest was one.
True. Like if they're positioned the way, you can't bend because they can't bend backwards.
Yes.
But if her spine and your spine, then as you bend, she just bends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. There was this whole range of mobility I hadn't experienced the first time. So the changes and everything kind of were special, more special the first time, just because I had the time to appreciate and to feel the bumps and to see the arm move and all of that. But then I felt pregnant when my youngest was one, which meant a lot of focus was on her and just surviving. So kind of at night, I go, day. But then also with my second, I got 9 months of morning sickness. My morning sickness stopped when I gave birth. And that also kind of put a damper on things when, you'd be playing with this kid and then you would have to just rush and get to the bathroom just in time. And it was 9 months of that kind of took a bit of the magic away. But I enjoyed the process because I was very, in my body positive way, was very conscious of, I'm not fat, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So I didn't hide the bump and I wasn't worried about the bump and I didn't agonize over how big or how small or how whatever the bump was, which a lot of people do because it wasn't fat, it was a baby. So for me it was special.
So for me, who came with a more vain approach, so I hadn't reached that body positivity prior to pregnancy. So with my first pregnancy, I gained so much weight. I put on like 20 kilograms in that pregnancy with my little boy. My husband laughed once I'd given birth. He says, "Oh, you lost the bum on your bum," And for me, I think what I struggled with most, like I loved the pregnancy, the experience of the pregnancy was so special to me. What I struggled with is prior to pregnancy, if you do specific things, if you eat a certain way, exercise a certain way, and if you do all of that, you are a predictable size. It's almost like you can determine the outcome of what you're going to look like. And when it comes to pregnancy, you have no control. Like your body is just going to do what your body wants to do. So I think not knowing that, and then the whole time that kind of freaked me out in a sense, because I kept thinking to myself, am I going to go back? Is my body, am I ever, because it's almost like I've lost control. I struggle with that control thing. And I did bounce back and, well, if you want to call it bounce back, but I did lose the weight that I'd gained quite rapidly with breastfeeding afterwards. So that kind of then put my mind at ease, and I really enjoyed raising him. Then with my daughter, I was pregnant the majority of my pregnancy with COVID, and it's the weirdest thing. I picked up almost no weight with her. I only picked up the placenta, whatever, but my stomach was so much bigger and I was so uncomfortable that pregnancy. I got everything. I got heartburn, nausea, sciatic pain. And that pregnancy, I get what you mean by it was only when I was having moments alone on the couch or on the bed that I realized, oh, wait, you're growing, little one. Hey, how are you? So probably from a body perspective, the second pregnancy was much easier for me than the first because I knew what I was getting into.
Yes.
After your birth, like immediately after, okay, like that first month or two after having given birth, how did you feel in that phase of your life?
So again, I'm going to chat about my first pregnancy and my second because they were different. So for my first pregnancy, I went into labor and got rushed to the hospital. And after a 13-hour labor, was told you can't wait anymore because you're not progressing. We have to do a C-section. And kind of in that split second, this idea you have about things suddenly changes. And, you read, but you're never really prepared for what's going to happen. Classes are there to help you, but it doesn't quite...
No, nothing can prepare you really, right?
So, you have the C-section and they bring the baby and she didn't want to latch. My milk didn't come in. We struggled with that a little bit. And so
I remember you also reacted very negatively to the pain medication that they'd given you.
Yes, they gave me morphine and I barely actually remember my first day with her. I kind of went in and out of consciousness, which was not at all nice. And then obviously got home. And I have the C-section scar, I have this band, I've had major abdominal surgery, I'm caring for this baby. And by and large, in the first month or two, much like your journey with the breastfeeding, my weight and everything dropped off with breastfeeding. And everything, including my stomach, save for the scar that I had actually gone back to
what you remember.
More or less what it was. There were a couple of tears because I have been pretty much since the age of 14 a double D breast. And when my milk came in, I was like 4 times bigger than my breast. So I was like, no, it's never going to go down. Oh, wow. I'm used to this. Yeah, I was busty, but I was now really extremely busty. And I was like, I was not prepared for this. Yeah. That also too went down when I stopped breastfeeding. So everything kind of except for the scar was fine. But then with the second C-section, I'd spoken to the doctor about the effects of the pain medication I'd been on, and they used different medication in that C-section, and that was fine. She latched, that was all good. I was prepared for what was going to happen when the milk came in. But they had also in the interim started closing C-section incisions differently. And so my scar looked different now. There was more scar tissue. It took way longer to heal because I was now running after a kid who was not quite 2 yet.
I like how they say to you, can't pick up your child. And it's just like
such a joke.
Yeah, tell me not to pick up my 2-year-old.
Tell the 2-year-old you can't pick her up.
Yeah.
And that took really long to heal because I'd have to bend over the bath. I'd have to pick this kid up. She would accidentally kick me, having a meltdown. And then I would bleed a bit. And so it took 4 times longer for my C-section to heal. And my stomach didn't look the same again after that. I do have a bit of a shelf now. The scar does look different. There is scar tissue. The incision itself, I can't fault the doctor. It's beautiful. But things kind of went back to normal after number 1 and didn't quite after number 2.
It was similar for me with my first pregnancy. So I chose cesareans. I'm a very A-type personality. The idea of giving birth and not having control and doing that that was not for me as well. So I scheduled both of my cesareans, and both of my cesarean operations themselves were beautiful. I do not react to medications. I was away. Both my kids latched really easily. I enjoyed them. I remember them, like people were like shocked. They're like, you just had an op, you look perfectly fine. And I really did. I enjoyed both of those experiences. For me personally, they were beautiful experiences. Mm-hmm. My recovery afterwards, maybe I just have a high pain tolerance or a high healing threshold, which is possible. But I recovered exceptionally quickly from both of those. I remember on day 4 walking around with the pram with my son, with my daughter. I was picking up my daughter and having no issues. For me, the only real difference between pregnancy 1 and pregnancy 2 was my scar was really small with my firstborn, and I made a bad keloid. My body creates keloids. I scar really badly, so it made a horrible keloid. So with my second cesarean, the doctor actually cut the keloid out. And then I think with the second, they naturally have to cut further. So my scar was a lot longer, and I made a bit of keloid on the sides of my scars, but not terrible. And I was lucky. It didn't actually create a shell for me the second time around. It's just I have a longer scar, but it's below your pansy line, so it doesn't bother me. What was different for me with the second one is my stomach got so much bigger with the second one, that if I stand straight, my stomach looks fine. But if I bend or whatever, it's like if you blow up a balloon really big and then you deflate it, it never goes back fully. So it's there and I look fine and I look great in clothes, but there is that wrinkly skin that was just like, listen, sorry, girl, we can't do what you wanted to do. So I would say but you know what, I suppose you get to an age where maybe mommy shouldn't be wearing bikinis anymore. And so it's not the worst thing in the world to have. And but that definitely did change for me. I enjoyed the larger breast size because I'm naturally small-breasted. So that for me was a positive. After, the only thing that I think I would say negative for me was straight after birth of my son, the operation or whatever, I got exceptionally swollen. I couldn't even fit in my maternity clothes. So for about 2 weeks afterwards, I was very swollen, and that freaked out my mind because I'm just like, what is this, my new normal? And then once the water left, I went back to normal size. Now, what we really want to actually delve in this conversation is about, you mentioned it to me when we were preparing for this conversation, the whole concept of bouncing back, because we've actually both mentioned it to an extent already, the way we've explained it. Yeah. But explain your perception on this whole idea of bounce back.
So what we discussed about leading up to this, which kind of, I think, got this whole ball rolling, is how toxic that term, just simply in general, is to bounce back. That as women, we're expected to have grown humans, and our bodies have changed on a completely cellular level in order to accomplish that, to make milk, to organs have shifted, bones have shifted, your uterus has expanded, you've either had abdominal surgery or your bones have had to shift and you had to dilate to actually birth this child. And based on bone structure, people have been able to see which Neanderthals were mothers, because just from a skeletal structure, they could see that they had been pregnant and that their skeleton had changed and had given birth. So you've changed right down to your very skeletal structure, and people come back and say, bounce back. How can you, if your body has changed to such a degree, be asked to be presented, to look and to behave like it never happened? Because they say even if you cannot or don't or choose not to breastfeed, your breasts, just by the process of pregnancy, all of the hormones and physical changes that have happened, your breasts are different forever, whether you've actually breastfed or not.
Yeah, everyone was like, oh, my breasts look different because I breastfed. I'm like, no, my breasts look different because I was pregnant. Yes. Breastfeeding did not make my breasts worse than what the pregnancy does. So I also find that a flaw. And I think that whole term of bounce back is, people are like, no, it's okay, you had a baby. So they're not saying that you should bounce back in the sense that, you must look identical to what you looked before. What they're actually saying to you is, get skinny again.
Yes.
don't be okay with the few extra pounds or kilos you added in your pregnancy. Get skinny again. It's like, it's okay if your hips are wider. It's okay if your rib cage. So what that term is actually saying is, it's just saying that, no, you put on baby fat, get rid of this baby fat.
Yeah. Don't have a shelf. Hide the shelf in your clothing. Hide the fact that, well, where you said, should mom wear a bikini? Yeah, mom, wear a bikini, even if your stomach is crinkly and you perhaps have had diastasis recti or a shelf or whatever. What they're asking you to do really is hide the changes. So you're a little bit softer, fix that. You have a shelf, pack it away and hide that. Your stomach is a little bit crinkly, don't show it off. And they're asking you to, it's fine, you've done this, but can you hide those changes so it's a little bit more comfortable for everybody else? Thank you.
That is so true. It's like they do. They want you to hide the fact that you've now become a mother. Like, I never mentioned this earlier, but I got the worst cellulites in my pregnancy with my son. And I'll never forget sitting in church one day and I crossed my legs and I looked down and there was cellulite on my calves. And when you were like horrified about your like massive breasts, I was like, my word, it's all the way down to my calves, and that cellulite has not gone away. I mean, most of it has gone away, but I have cellulite that I never had prior to pregnancies. And me personally, I am the same size clothing as what I was prior to pregnancy, but my body is different. My rib cage, my bra strap used to be on the smaller setting. Now it was on the bigger setting, and I actually just went and bought a size up with regards to that sizing because it was uncomfortable. My hips, even though I'm the same size pants, some pants that I had, I couldn't get the button closed because my hips was just a smidgen wider, but if you have really skinny pants on, they don't fit. And those changes, and this actually, I would love us to have this conversation about how did you, because you go through this almost grief period. And I think that process of grief is natural and it's healthy. Of, I look different, things are different, clothes don't fit the way they fitted before. And you have this process of grief where you almost do, I think, psychologically need to grieve the human you were and the body you had prior to pregnancy.
Definitely, I agree. And I think being someone who's very body positive now and who chooses to kind of love myself and be my own best friend now, there's also grief in, I didn't appreciate to the extent that I should have what I had before and how easy it was before and how things kind of sat the way they did before.
No,
and
it's effortless.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't, that I'm not in absolute wonder of what it is my body has done, that it has breastfed and it has birthed two healthy human beings and it grew them to term and, all of those things. It's not that I'm not grateful for that process. And it's amazing that my body could shift things around and do that. I'm short. I'm 1.52 centimeters. I'm tiny, but I did, I had kids, I carried them, I did the thing, and it's not that I'm not in awe of the body that could change and accommodate all of that. It's that, I grieve for the fact that I hadn't appreciated what I had before. So there's grief so I think it's normal to have grief because you liked what you had before and you might not be happy with what you have now. And you need to come to accept that things are different, and that's okay. I think it's okay to grieve that relationship. Like, I wish I had been my friend before, like I am now. So I grieve for the person who wasn't accepted then. And I think there is definite this transition. There's this kind of pull. There's this guilt of, I want to be grateful for what this body has done, but at the same time you have feelings of, I wish I'd appreciated things before, I wish I'd befriended it before, or I wish it was easier to accept, depending on where you are on your journey. I wish it was easier to accept what it is now. And so definitely I think it's a process.
For me, it was very much how do I term this now? So the grief process for me was, I agree with you, that whole accepting your body. You didn't appreciate what you had before. There's this TikTok I watched once where the girl said, at some point, you just got to accept that the way I look now is as good as it's ever going to get.
Amen.
I'm never going to look better than it. I'm just going to get older, more wrinkles, and probably gain a few pounds because my hormones are going to change. It's like, so at this moment in time, and we keep, like what you're speaking, the grief was prior to children, you were constantly living in the future of, I'm going to be better, I'm going to look better, I'm going to lose those 10 pounds, I'm going to fit in that pair of jeans. And the process of this grief that you went through changed your perception, where you're now like, I should have appreciated that body. I shouldn't have been living in the future. And now you're living more in the moment, that this is what I have.
Yeah.
This is what it is. And for me, that was the biggest gift of pregnancy. I never had this awestruck, oh, look at what my body can do. It was like, great, my body can do this. I expected my body to do this, because many women's bodies have done this through all the generations. So I didn't have this weird sense of zen about my body. But what I got, and the main thing that I experienced afterwards, was that acceptance of who I am and what I look like, which that vanity I had prior to kids, almost not instantly, it faded away for a few reasons, which we'll discuss in more detail now, but it faded away. And where prior I would walk into a restaurant and I would care so much, like, I wonder who sees how nice I look, I wonder who's looking at me. Then I had a child and I'm just like, I wonder if everyone can see my cute baby, you know, like my what became important to me changed.
Yeah.
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 And we discussed a lot about how, and this is a beautiful thing, not so much pregnancy, but children, how they end up your biggest teachers. And that's a beautiful process. Because you've got 2 girls. Explain to me how having girls specifically has changed your outlook on life and your body and all of that.
So I have a quote from a friend that he posted on Facebook. He's a psychologist. And it happened sort of just as I'd given birth to my eldest daughter. And I share it every year that the memory comes back into my feed again. And I captioned it that this means more now than ever before because I have daughters. And the quote was, it's not finding yourself, it's a remembering. It's a remembering who you were before the world got its hands on you. And I kind of went, I want my girls to grow up in a world where they feel free to be themselves in their skin, just as nature intended. And how do you go about that process? How do you teach this little girl, you know, you're enough just as you are, and you don't have to change it to make people happy? And that kind of I kind of looked at myself and said, well, what do I model to them? If I am critical when I look in the mirror, if I stand on a scale, if I won't wear the costume at the pool when we take them on holiday, what is that message? What does that non-verbal message say to them? Because I'm telling them, you're good enough the way you look, but I'm not. And why am I not, but you are? If this is kind of how nature has built you. And this brings me to a quote by Evelyn Tribole, where she says, make a list of everything you wish you could do. That future living you spoke about, where you said, you know, previous,
when I lose these 10 kilos, I will do
exactly.
What?
So where you were saying you lived like that beforehand, you know, if I lose this weight, I'll buy the bikini. If I lose this weight, I'll wear a costume and climb in the pool with my kids. If I lose this weight, I'm going to buy a really beautiful dress to go on date night with my husband. I'm going to go out and buy lingerie and seduce my husband, or, you know, whatever it is, or I'm going to go on a hike or an island holiday. And she said, whatever it is that you've put on this list, that if you felt you were in a different body or your body was in this future space, do it now. Take that list and do it now. Put the costume on and go to the pool. Climb in the bikini, buy the dress and go out to dinner. Take the hike and do the holiday, because like you were saying, this might be as good as it gets. This might be your one chance. And that's, I think, wisdom in that is also showing your kids, do the things now just as you are.
Yeah. There's 2 quotes that really stood out to me. One was Kate Winslet, and she said she grew up in a family with not a single woman in that house ever verbalized appreciation for their own body. And she says, that made her very body conscious growing up. And she makes a conscious choice of verbalizing out loud to her kids that, man, my body's nice and strong. Yeah, but I look good in this dress. And verbalizing that I'm appreciating my body, because that really is the non-verbal communication, is the only communication your kids hear.
Yeah.
They don't really, and how are you showing that off? And this was big for me this December. We went on holiday and I wore a bikini, and my daughter's now only 2.5 years old. So I didn't actually have so much of an awakening with my son. But the minute my daughter was born, I started being like, oh, wait, I am the example she is going to follow going forward. What example am I setting? And one thing that stood out for me, if you've ever seen people on the beach, walking on the beach in a costume, they do this costume walk. Like, they don't walk naturally like you would normally walk. Like, they walk a little bit rigid so that the jiggly bits don't jiggle. And I was like, that's a nonverbal message to my child. I am showing her I'm on the beach, I'm in a costume, but I'm not comfortable.
Yes.
And why are you not comfortable, mommy? Maybe I shouldn't be comfortable, And this December, I walked on the beach and I let my bum move the way my bum moves. And I'm just like, I'm bent over and my wrinkly tummy would wrinkle. And I'm like, I'm going to be that example to her. And it's beautiful because my focus, instead of being on, I wonder what the world is seeing, I'm like, I wonder what you are seeing.
Yes.
In this moment, I care, little girl, what you are seeing. I don't care what daddy sees and what all the other people sees. I don't care if they think it's, what is she wearing? I don't care that. I care what your little eyes are seeing, because you're my job. You're not my job. You're my goal. I want you to be happy in your body, and I have to become more comfortable in my own body.
Like, you want to save her from the work, almost.
Yes,
because you can't really fake it. Like, you really need to love and accept yourself. Because like you say, if you're faking it, there are non-verbal cues that kind of say,
will automatically pick up.
Yeah, not as comfortable as I.
And what I found,
and you want them to kind of have a little bit less of that work as they grow up.
And what I found is walking on the beach without worrying was almost healing to myself. Because you on the other side of that, you're just like, that was so easy. Like, wow. Like, why were we putting this off for so long?
You just have to think about how you're walking.
Yeah, you're just like, this is so easy. This is so comfortable. I should just be more comfortable in my body. What downside is there to loving and appreciating your body? Honestly, what downside is there to that? Nothing. And everyone's like, well, you can't just let it go. But I'm going, if you're loving your body, you're not just going to let it go, right? Because you're going to be giving it for it. Because you're going to be caring for your body. Absolutely.
And I think there's definitely going to be relief in having permission to go, this is me. This is me now. My body has changed. It's lived a life. It's gone through some things. And I think there's relief to go, I'm allowed to own those experiences and have them show.
Yeah. There's this meme, quotes actually, I sent my Nicole, saying that this woman is on the beach and she's in a costume and she's got all the rolls that we don't want. And she says, this is a body and it's at the pool, which means it's pool ready. And like, that's as simple as what it should be. You're at the pool in your costume, and therefore you are pool ready or you're beach ready. It's not something you still have to achieve. And then I read, and this is a beautiful book to actually go and read. Any woman, go read this book by Glennon Doyle called Untamed. And in this book, she's in a bookstore with her teenage daughter, and her daughter's looking at the cover of a magazine. And there's this beautiful model on the thing, and she says to her daughter, what message are you getting from this? Like, what you're looking at this and what do you see? And her daughter says to her, well, Mom, my hair is never going to be that silky and smooth. I've got frizzy hair. And she's like, I don't have long legs like that, so I can't wear shorts. And, she started saying to her mom, what is the message that this is giving her? And then her mom said, and this is a beautiful thing, she said, okay, we're going to walk around the shop bookstore and we're going to walk around the mall. And I want you to look at every woman you can see. I want you to look at them. And they walked around and she looked, and then after a while she asked her, and what do you see? She's like, yeah, none of these women look like that girl. And she says, no, but what are these? These are real women. Mm-hmm. Your aunt is a real woman. Your grandmother is a real woman. I'm a real woman. All these women, these are real women. What do real women look like?
Yes.
A variety of things. So different. So tall, skinny, long legs, chunky legs, shorter legs, big bums, no bums, big tummies, no tummies. Like there's such diversity in that, and that diversity is beautiful. But I want you to share that one story you told me about how our children can trigger us still because we're not fully healed. And your daughter, when she spoke to you in the car, what you responded to, because that was so beautiful.
So this is a kind of, I'm going to give a bit of a backstory to the whole thing as well. So we were actually at a resort and we had been swimming, and I'm sitting in my bikini and I'm on the back seat of the car with the kids, and they're cold, so they've stolen my towel, and I'm sitting in my costume in this back seat, and they're both snuggling up to me for warmth. And my eldest starts poking at my stomach and she says, "Mommy, why are you so fat? You have a fat tummy." And I'm kind of going, okay. So, obviously you don't want to be triggered. And then I say to her, well, I'm getting older. I've had kids. So my body's changed a bit now. My stomach is a bit soft and it's squishy and it's a little bit fat and it's fuller. And that's just how I am built. And I said to her, but that bodies are meant to change. And how I explained it was, I said to her, bodies are meant to change and you're changing. You were born and you were this little baby. Now imagine you were still this little baby. You never grew. You still look like that. But I said, but you haven't. You've got long hair and you've grown and you're bigger and you're getting taller all the time. And my other little one was sitting next to me and I said, and if you look at your sister, she was born and she was a baby and she's changing. And I said to her, my two kids look like they have a different father. They do not look related at all. And I said to her, do you know how you've got green eyes and she's got blue eyes, and your hair, is a bit darker than hers? And do you see how you look the way you look, but she looks the way she looks? But you two just look different. And I said, so, I'm changing and I'm going to keep changing. I'm going to get old and I'm going to get wrinkly and one day my hair is going to go gray. Bodies are meant to do that, We are meant to change as time goes on. And then this is
a beautiful message, even for us, to remember that our bodies are meant to change. We are meant to change, and that change is not a terrible thing. That change is a beautiful thing.
Exactly. And then also in the same conversation, so she pokes at my boobs now. She says, "Oh, but I like your boobs. Am I going to have boobs like you one day?" So I said, well, I don't know, because you might have ones like me. They might be smaller. They might be bigger. And I said, they might be totally different, but they're going to be perfect because they're yours and they were meant for your body. And they are going to be great because they are what nature intended your body to grow. And she looked at me and she said, so you imagined that your body would be like this one day. And I don't know what I'm going to look like yet because I haven't imagined yet what I'm going to be. I thought, well, I'm glad that's it. So, you spoke about this thing. I thought, there was a really beautiful message from you, actually, kid, where you went, you've imagined that you're this body and you're this person and you live this way. I don't know what that journey is for me yet. And I was like, yes.
And it's that noticing how they view the world. I think that was one thing that stood out to me in parenting, just in general, is that you really, if you allow them to teach you, they will be your greatest teachers, because they have such a raw, untainted, unblemished view of the world, of bodies, of differences. And what starts happening is they'll make a comment about somebody's size, and how we respond is the message we feed into their brain about if that is good or bad. So, no, that person is so fat. Then, oh, okay, the way that mommy said that makes me think that fatness is not a good thing. Oh, okay, message received. And if you allow yourself to view things in the world like they do, there was this little video of a little girl lying in the bath, probably 2 years old, and they still have those little pot bellies. And she's lying there and she's just poking her little belly like this. And her mom was saying, Flip, I need to appreciate my belly the way that my daughter appreciates her belly. And they really are such beautiful teachers. If you could leave one message for the listeners, could be about body positivity or parenting or how we message to our kids about body positivity, what would you say? What would you say was a defining moment for yourself where you were like, I'm going to change how I think about this?
I would say if I could leave you with one thing, and nobody watching this video needs it from me or anyone else, but you have permission to love yourself just the way you are, just as nature intended. You have permission to just love things just the way they are, and you don't have to change it. You can actually live in your body and love it and accept it just for what it is. And I'll actually say, because we were talking about being girl moms, you know what, do it if you have boy moms too. Boys also need to see that all bodies are okay, even their bodies. And that's what I would say. Give permission to just be you.
And if anyone else has a problem with that, that is their problem.
Yes.
It's not your problem. And don't allow yourself and your insecurities to make it your problem. Own what you've got. There is confidence is the sexiest thing alive. I have seen people 5 times my size, dressed up, putting in effort. Like, you can put in effort no matter what your size is, looking beautiful, and I will notice them, and the thought that crosses my mind is not, this is a big woman dressed up. This is, wow, she looks so good. And she's 5 times my size. And I've seen people half my size or my size and go, phew, you look terrible. You know, like,
you can see you're insecure.
Yeah, you can see, you don't even
have that body people would think you want, but you can see the insecurity
that they are not,
that they are struggling with. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a lovely discussion. Go and leave a comment. Tell us, how did you feel about your body prior to pregnancy or journey of pregnancy? What have you gained personally through that experience with your different pregnancies? Let us know how it was for you, and if you've had any almost aha moments personally, share that with everyone down below. Have a lovely day. Bye.